What's up, guys? Today I really wanted to talk about how do you create creativity in your classroom? How do we welcome that in our classroom? That is like $1 million question, and I thought I'd share some of my tips and then hopefully have you guys down below post yours. I know we have a lot of new teachers on this chat trying to figure out what that is, but we also have a lot of teachers that have experience on this channel. Let's share that experience down below. All right, so without further ado, let's get into the meat of this idea. So creativity, it's this elusive thing where we in school want to systematize things. We want to break them down so students can learn them, give it to them in bite-sized little bits, but at the same time, that sometimes strips away and removes the creativity or at very least sort of that creative energy that goes along with kind of the exploration. That's a piece of creativity, and we lose some of that when we systematize things. So thinking of ways that we can build creativity in our classroom is huge. And so some of the advice that I have kind of off the bat. One, ask students what they want. Ask them what they desire. Ask them their interests. See what they like. See what they like outside of school. See what they like inside of school. See what they like in your class. So I guess to start off with, and I know this might seem crazy and a little off the wall here, but I think asking students, being welcoming to students, whether that's in survey form or just kind of informally, after an activity, really show the kids that you're trying to tool the class to their needs and their excitement and their interests. And the only way you're gonna be able to do that is ask. So, actually, in fact, if you do any sort of surveying of your students, like I said, informal or formal, give this video a little thumbs up so that we can kind of get a pulse for how many of you guys actually ask your students kind of on a semi-regular basis how things are going in terms of what you're doing. Not how things are going for them in their life and in the class, but I mean for how your class, how the activities are playing out. So give it a thumbs up if you're somebody that kind of regularly does that. Number two for me is really the ordinary. The ordinary inspires creativity because it sort of locks us into something, right? It forces our thinking to be outside the box because we've limited our resources to the ordinary. And what I mean by the ordinary is take something that's just so simple. It's around the house, it's basic, it's inexpensive, and then just sort of think about how you could use that. Good example for me, I was trying to come up with some new side quests lately. I'm in the Greek unit, and some side quests get a little unwieldy, some side quests get really big, and sometimes that's super awesome, and I love to see students create that. But some students sometimes feel like, well, I'm not going to make this big thing, or I don't have access to those kind of resources or tools or whatever. So you want to think of ones that reduce to the ordinary. So what I did hard-boiled history. I came up with 4 side quests that use hard-boiled eggs. That's an ordinary object, something that everybody's gonna have. One of the ones the students have already turned in and are kind of excited about doing is getting sort of those brown eggs, right? And hard boiling those, and that brown is that same sort of color of Greek pottery. And then they had to with a fine tip Sharpie kind of etch on a scene onto that as if it was a famous Greek urn or pot. And then alongside that kind of write about pottery in Greece and kind of its importance either in the trade or whatnot. And the kids really loved it. And then we started to do some other ones where they had to create scenes with their hard-boiled history. They had to make actual Greek figurines out of them and then reenact sort of a scene in kind of a diorama format. But we took the ordinary, we took the simple and made it kind of excessive and kind of fun and different, and it sort of lit their creative juices. And I think that's what happens when you kind of give the ordinary, when we limit a project and an activity down to the basics, and then give a challenge on top of that, right? Creativity is about imagination, and they're obviously having to apply a lot of imagination to an egg. So What I'm gonna ask too is down below if you could put a comment if you have some ordinary objects, some ordinary things that you bring in to help your students out, to give them these kind of little challenges. And if you don't, still down below post what are just some of your ideas now that you're gonna think of the ordinary. Let's build a list of ordinary objects that we all have in our daily lives that we can kind of like start to collect and bring in for like a little limiting task, a little like challenge for them, or a writing prompt based on one of these things. It really can just sort of ignite that creativity. Number 3, guys, is support our students. One of the ways to sort of increase your creative space here in your classroom is to truly like create a supportive classroom where taking risks is okay. Where not necessarily following the rubric is always the right and perfect thing to do. We need to show kids that it's not just about going down that list, right? I like to say in some of my presentations that I don't want to make a bunch of cooks, a bunch of line cooks that can just chop the way you tell them to chop and do the, like, we don't want line cooks. What I want is chefs, people that can be inspired by the ingredients, people that can like fuse together different ideas and possibly create something new with that, with the basic, with the ordinary, going back to the last point, right? So supporting our students is huge, and there's lots of different ways you can support them. You can, again, be very give really good feedback to the students. If you're in a gamified class like mine, some of the feedback can come in the form of the game in terms of like leveling up, in terms of some items or power-ups, right? It can also just be supporting them in terms of like asking them what they need. Show that you're willing to kind of invest in their vision. Over the years now, I've been teaching a lot of years, so I've been able to collect some things. So for the new teachers out there, maybe you don't have this yet, but aim towards this. Like set aside a little bit of money or something that you're willing to dedicate to your classroom. And instead of buying the consumables, instead of buying the sort of pizza party or candy you give your students, think of yourself like a business. What could you invest those dollars in that could help support your students year over year? So for example, I've bought some microphones that my students have used for podcasting, for just different video effects, and it's been awesome. And like you're able to say year over year, I'm supporting you. I'm investing in your creativity. What is it you need? And over time, you'll be able to meet more and more of those needs, more and more of those requests because of the investments you've made. And I don't want to like belabor the point about investments in terms of money, because like it's not really totally our job to do that, and I totally understand that. So realize the best investment you can make is your time, your intention, and your care with your students. So those are sort of my quick 3 tips to infusing creativity. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel. It's all about like teaching tips and advice and really just finding joy in the journey. We do a lot with gamification, a lot with playful learning. Ultimately, it's a great community, and it's a great community because of you guys. So keep coming back. I hope you guys have posted down below. I hope you've given it a thumbs up because we really should be serving our students. That would be really awesome. We can really make those micro changes. But that's all I got for you today. Until next time, see you later. Okay, I don't know if any of you are still watching at this point, but I just had to show you, like, looking at some of these hard-boiled histories, right? Look at that. That's awesome. We have another one here. Did like 3 different ones. That's just boss. That's baller. I dig it. Look at this guy. Boom. This guy made it like you're unearthing them, like you're digging them out, like you're discovering the pottery in its sort of environment. It's fantastic. And then we have kind of the written up of discovering that. Nonetheless, just the ordinary. I have to share one more. I do. This one, project was sort of, I shouldn't say the project, the side quest was about trying to make a map. And I said that they could do it any which way they want. It could be a battle map, could be on a sheet of paper. We got different ones. Like, oh, I got this big one here. It's huge. I love it. It's creative, it's different, it's showing the trade maps. But look at this one. It's a box, right? I'm like, well, they just printed off a bunch of maps. I'm not digging it. But you open up the box, and she took a map and made it into a puzzle. And if you think, wait a minute, she just took the map and cut it up. No. You might not be able to see it, but That's painted on. That's painted on, people. That's applying like creative skills across the board in social studies. How many times in social studies have you asked your students to paint something? I gotta tell you, I've kind of never done it, but my students have done it. My students do it because it's a welcoming environment. So I don't know how many of you stuck around to this sort of post little wrap up, but I had to show you some of these projects because they're just so awesome and they're done in an area, in a time, and in a space that they're not graded. So, all right, now truly, that's all I got. I swear, I'm done. We're done. Till next time, take care.